Obviously, when we look at language development among ELL students, it's crucial that teachers have a sense of what is the progression, what are typical patterns. If they don't know what the typical patterns are, they may assume that just because a child has acquired reasonably good phonology in English or can speak it reasonably fluently in everyday context, that they've acquired English. And this was a major misconception earlier on. Back in the 70s and 80s, it was thought that after maybe 1 year in a bilingual program or 2 years or in an ESL program, when students had acquired a reasonable degree of fluency in everyday context in the language, that they had learned English. In actual fact, we know now that it takes a lot longer for students to catch up academically. So we have to make that distinction between conversational fluency in a language and academic language proficiency. When I first looked at this issue, I used the acronyms BICS and CALP. BICS stands for Basic Interpersonal Communicative Skills. CALP is Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency. Those terms or those acronyms are still widely used. But basically what they're getting at is the fact that everyday language is very different from academic language. Everyday language uses a relatively small set of high-frequency words. Academic language uses the full range of English vocabulary. There's a lot of words in academic language that students will come across in textbooks, in the content areas, particularly as they go up to grade levels, that we don't use in everyday contexts. So there's a difference in the lexicon or the vocabulary between everyday and academic language. Grammatically, we use just a relatively simple, straightforward set of grammatical structures in everyday language. In academic language, it's very common to have embedded sentences, relative clauses, the use of the passive voice, which we almost never use in everyday contexts. So that difference is an incredibly important difference to take account of, because if we don't do it, we may think, for example, that it's okay to test a student after 1 year of learning English. They seem like they've picked up English, and that student is going to typically perform very poorly on that test because they just haven't had enough time to catch up.